Six Nations Team of the Week for week number 1, folks. We're going to go through 15 players who stood out at the weekend, go through some of their kind of highlight moments, narrow it down to the top of the top, the best of the best, and you guys can let us know your thoughts on which players stood out for you. I am going to do this a little bit differently because there's one position in particular that I had real trouble picking. So I'm going to kind of go through it basically kind of in the order that I picked them, and then you guys can let us know how you would do it. One guy who didn't end up getting man of the match in his game, and it's one of the outside backs, that was James Lowe. He didn't end up getting man of the match because Jamison Gibson Park got it, but they both played bloody well. But James Lowe, I feel like was pretty bloody good. Like outstanding even. 3 try assists for a winger is kind of unusual. He sets up Gibson Park. When he busts through Mitchell's tackle, he sets up Tadhg Beirne. When he goes through that big gap between Cunningham South and Genge, and then he sets up Sheehan for that final one. He kind of returns the favour after saying it was Sheehan that put him in the initial gap out on the left wing. He's got 122 run meters, which is the best of any player this week. He's got 3 defenders beaten, 5 clean breaks. He's got a hell of a boot on him with those 6 kicks. Makes 5 from 5 tackles. The guy gets criticised for being defensively poor. 10 passes is huge involvements for a winger. I feel like that's a hell of a game. Hell of a game from James Lowe out on that left wing for Ireland. And I've also gone with one of the French guys in the loose forwards. I think he did get man of the match. Gregory Alldritt was rather outstanding. If you are your team's top carrier, top tackler, and top meter getter, and you're the number 8, that's a pretty good involvement. He scores a try. Nice kind of close range one to put the icing on the cake for the French performance. 18 carries, first for France. 64 metres, first for France. Couple of defenders beaten. 9 passes is big involvements from an 8. He's also got an offload in there. 18 from 19 tackles. Like I mentioned, their top tackle of that game. Also wins a turnover. Doesn't concede any penalties. Dude was involved in absolutely everything for France. So a very special player. And then obviously, kind of by default, you basically get a hat trick. And you're going to get player of the match. I think I saw a game the other day. Was it the Champions Cup where we saw a hat-trick guy get not player of the match because the hat-trick try was scored after the announcement? I forget which game that was, but Huw Jones scored a hat-trick for Scotland. You're basically guaranteed an early spot on the board. 3 tries, support line for the Duan van der Merwe break, support line for the Darcy Graham hell of a break, and then his best try was the 3rd one. No real rights to score that with multiple Italian defenders in front of him. Still goes through and does it. 80 metres, 13 carries, couple of defenders beaten, 13 passes, also huge involvements. 5 from 6 tackles, including a dominant one. Very good day at the office for Huw Jones. So those guys, I think, were pretty easy picks. A guy who had a little bit more competition, but I still chucked him in ahead of the man of the match in his game was Antoine Dupont. Gibson Park obviously got man of the match. I go with Dupont, man. The guy only played just over half the game and still finishes with 3 try assists. Cross kick to Tadhg Beirne. The wide pass to Tadhg Beirne, which has been highlighted as potentially being forward, depending on which camera angle you look at it. Some look worse than others. Some look fine. And then the wide kind of rip ball over the top to Tadhg Beirne. Setting up 3 tries. Not very common that you get 2 guys do that in 1 week, but both him and Lowe did that. 61 passes, that's his job, to be getting that ball out quick. 9 kicks. I mean, one of them he fluffed his lines and kicked it kind of out on the full, I think, but largely causing havoc with those kicks. Makes 4 from 4 tackles. He's the top scrum half for run meters this week with 58. That's despite the fact that he got subbed really early, so the guy would have got more. In all likelihood, he gets more defenders beaten, more try assists, more meters, everything if he stays on longer. But he only plays just over half a game. Also the top scrum half for defenders beaten as well. The dude's pretty good. Very good player. Another guy who I thought stood out is a loose forward. I thought Rory Darge stood out for the Scots. He also gets himself on the scoreboard, kind of like Alldritt's one. Bit of close range power, but I love his defensive game. 12 from 13 tackles, including 2 dominant tackles and including 2 turnovers. That is why you pick Rory Darge. He is a defensive powerhouse. And then he also attacked really well. 13 carries for 22 metres. That's a good shift. A couple of defenders beaten there. Doesn't concede any penalties. Few passes and offloads and whatnot going on. Really, really positive contribution to him, to that Scottish effort. And then I've also gone with another midfielder in Aki. Sorry, Huw Jones, I got you in the wrong row. Bundee Aki. Had a wee hand and a fair bit of everything for Ireland in the build-up to a few moves. I mean, he didn't have a perfect game. He certainly got skinned by Marcus Smith early, but he made up for that with that try he scored. The try he scored, he just flattened Marcus Smith. And he just showed that kind of power game that he's got. 10 runs, 26 metres. 10 runs is really, really busy in the midfield. A clean break, beats 3 defenders. 6 from 8 tackles, like I said. Marcus Smith basically went around him kind of flat-footed early, which is probably one of the missed ones. But 5 passes, an offload. Wins a line-out, scores that magnificent try, so I thought his contribution to the Irish shift was a very good one. Thomas Ramos at the back, if we're going for a fullback, continues to play well. There are a few good fullbacks this week, but Ramos also finishes with a try assist. He sets up Louis Bielbarré for his first one. 9 runs, 49 metres, continues to be dangerous on attack, beats 4 defenders in a clean break. Not even that outstanding in a game where both the wingers scored 2 tries for France. But he looked dangerous, and his kicking game, the dude always seems to kick a 50-22. You got to be really careful kicking that guy the ball. I was a little bit critical of Wales not flinging more up and unders his way, because he certainly fluffed one, or maybe more, but if you get it wrong and he gets the chance to kick back at you, he can punish you. So it's a risk-reward thing. 11 passes, also highlighting the kind of huge involvements that he gets when he comes into first receiver, especially once Intermac goes off. But Thomas Ramos, pretty good player. Kicks his conversions in the first half, especially as well. Haven't got any front rowers yet, which is pretty disgraceful. So we got to chuck Dave Cherry there from Scotland. He was not the expected pick from Gregory Townsend at hooker, but bloody hell, he played well. That offload, I don't know, Dave Cherry had that in his game. If you haven't seen it, Scotland set up the maul goes close, he peels off, and then just chicken wing offloads out to Ben White. It's a hell of a try assist. He gets it. The line-out operates at 100%, which is pleasing for Scotland because it's not always been their best area of strength. It's nice for them to get those numbers. They had those numbers against Italy last year as well, to be fair, which was, I think, their best game of the year line-out wise. So they replicated that, but it's pleasing to see. Makes 7 from 7 tackles, doesn't concede any penalties. In the first half especially, dude was everywhere. 7 carries, 14 metres. Good numbers for a front rower. So Dave Cherry, I think, certainly justified his selection. A lock, I'm going to go with Tadhg Beirne. Maybe a little bit getting more towards the controversial side, but I think overall contribution is still very good. I say controversial because he cost them a try. It might not have got picked up in every game, but the fact that he was holding on to Tadhg's leg at the bottom of a ruck, he had his hand right on Tadhg's leg, meant that the Kelleher try was chalked off, but he scored a try of his own to kind of make up for it. A support line for James Lowe's line break. He's one of their top tacklers with 12 from 14. He wins a turnover, which he always bloody seems to do. He's a great player for that. 3 runs for 18 metres is a hell of a return, but he gets a few of those on his break for the try. 2 penalties conceded, like I mentioned, so one of them is the one that cost the try, but definitely, if you're picking an Irish side, he is certainly one of the top names off your team sheet. Another outside back, that's all 3 of them. I've gone with Darcy Graham. Wings very competitive this week, but Darcy Graham, maybe a tough first half. He got flattened by bricks at one point, Scotland gave away a penalty there at the breakdown when he got smashed, which Allen converted, but the second half, that try assist he got kind of from nowhere, when Scotland were a wee bit rattled at 19 all, he just takes the ball, huge sidestep, big line break, and then sets up Jones for his second try. That, you feel like, is what showed the resilience to get Scotland back on track. So that was a very important moment. He also beats 11 defenders in this game, which is by far the most of anybody this week. He's such a hard guy to bring down. 104 metres, apart from James Lowe's numbers, I think he'd be pretty much top. 9 runs, a kick, 3 passes, 3 from 3 tackles, including a dominant one. But, a very productive second half, especially for Darcy Graham. And my other lock was kind of a tough pick. I went with Emmanuel Meafou from France. I don't know he was that outstanding, but he was solid. I'm kind of getting towards the end of my picks now. It's certainly kind of gone in order from kind of easier to tougher picks. Meafou, 10 from 10 tackles. That's part of the reason you pick a big unit like that, including 1 dominant tackle. Also 10 carries for 11 metres. A guy like that is lumbering around, tends to get about a metre per carry, so he lives up to that. Wins a line out, couple of passes, doesn't concede any penalties. Solid as a rock, does the job I think that you expect him to do. I also managed to get a few of the losing players in here. I haven't got any props yet, which is likewise disgraceful. But I went with Danilo Fischetti from Italy. They gave the Scottish guys issues at scrum time, which will be pleasing for them, a little bit concerning for the Scots. He himself conceded the 1 penalty, but from memory, that one was at the breakdown. So a good scrum from Italy. So Fischetti, I think, is a good representative of that. And 3 runs, 4 metres. Well, there's nothing too much to say about that. Those are very kind of prop-like numbers. But 16 out of 17 tackles. Heck of an effort. And then 1 key turnover he won. Maybe slightly illegally, but 1 key turnover. You get away with what you can get away with. At the breakdown when Scotland were hot on attack, he shut it right down. So 3 dominant tackles, big defensive plays, and big scrum from Danilo Fischetti. I also managed to get an Englishman on the board, Tom Curry. I think was probably the better of the 2 Curries. He scored a try, which is always going to be a bit of icing on the cake if you want to put icing on your curry. But yeah, that's a support line. I mean, the game was done and dusted by that point, but it's a nice consolation try, which led to them then getting a bonus point. So after that line break on the wing, he's running the support line, so good play. 13 from 14 tackles is phenomenal. But then the top turnover merchant this week with 3. So beats Darge's 2, beats Beirne's 1. That's great. So a very, very solid defensive effort from Tom Curry. Wins some line-out ball, also has 9 passes, and likewise doesn't concede any penalties. Offensively, 6 runs for 15 metres is all right. Around about 3 metres a carry from him. Pleasing stuff. Now this one's going to be maybe a little bit controversial because I actually got a Welshman on the board. Hear me out before you turn off the video or before you write an angry comment. Henry Thomas. In a side which gets beaten 43-0 against a massive, experienced French pack, Henry Thomas makes all of his tackles 12 from 12, and anytime a prop is getting into double-figure tackle numbers is very good. He doesn't concede any penalties against that massive French pack, which is also very good. He has 3 runs for 5 metres, so he's over the prop kind of 1 metre per 1 carry barrier, which is good. He had 3 passes. They didn't concede any maul tries when he was on the field. I think he did all right. So he's not going to get any plaudits because the team got flippin' flogged. But I don't know that Henry Thomas had a bad game in what was a bad outing for the Welsh. Now there's noticeably 1 position missing, number 10. I really, really struggled. I don't know who to pick. I mean, Intermac just ruins the performance he had with that stupid red card. Finn Russell did not have his best game for Scotland by any stretch of the imagination. Through the intercept pass for Brex and just not his best game for Scotland. Too many errors, some poor decision making. Marcus Smith, on fire early on. As I said, he skinned Bundee Aki, helped set up some good England attacking play, but gets the team yellow card, which I think Ireland pretty much not immediately scored from, but they scored at the end of the yellow card, and then he can't tackle Bundee Aki. He gets absolutely flattened. So it's kind of a mixed bag. Sam Prendergast had a bit of a mixed bag game. Some of the kicks he put through were kind of nothing kicks. He was targeted. He got flogged a few times by Ollie Lawrence for sure. So I just went with Jack Crowley because from the bench in the limited time that we got to see him, I thought he pulled the strings all right. Maybe it's a mature performance from a guy wanting to show the coach that he's still there and maybe deserves a start next time. 13 passes for the time he was on was pretty good. 6 kicks. 1 from 2 tackles is nothing too flash, but Ireland had a lot of the ball, barring those few minutes at the end. A couple of conversions. I think his kicking from the tee was striking it a bit better than Prendergast's were, although, I've seen in the URC Crowley's not been striking it that great, but this was all right. He did concede the 1 penalty, but yeah, I thought he looked comfortable once he got on the field. So that is the 15. There's certainly some guys who have been left out. The French wingers, for sure, both bagged a couple of tries. Menoncello looked great in the midfield for Italy. Likewise, Lawrence in the midfield for England. Kinghorn looked really good at the back for Scotland. Jack Morgan was probably the best Welsh player on the field, but in a losing shift. Josh van der Fleer likewise got through a bunch of work. Gibson Park got man of the match in his game, so you could make the list go on and on. But that's 15 guys for the week. I also didn't expect to get a Welsh guy on. I'm not doing that to be like hipster or anything. That's just kind of how it went. But yeah, if you want to see Welsh colours in a slightly more positive environment, check out that video where I went to Mulan's hometown, Mulan from Disney movie, whilst wearing some Welsh gear. I had a good time that day. More than the Welsh had at the weekend. But yes, check that out. Let us know your thoughts. Take care of yourselves, and talk to you guys again soon. See you later.